Is here. I don't know if they're registered.
Hello there.
Yeah, they are here. Okay. So you can do that at the beginning or the end.
Great. Dignitaries on hand. My mother is sitting behind me.
See if we can get her in the picture.
Yeah, there she is.
Okay, wave. There you go.
Hello, everybody.
My mother and my brother Barry came down to visit. Barry, who lives in Florida, my mother, who lives in Silver Spring, Maryland. Barry was here for a while, then went up, spent a couple of weeks sheltering in place with Mom, and then brought her down. And they came right down from DC, and we have rented a place a few blocks away from our house, as it happens, which is a kind of nice little in-town vacation luxury. And we've done that because we're building a bathroom on the first floor, and there are people running in and out of our house, some of whom are wearing masks and some of whom are not. And there's dust everywhere, and there's schmutz everywhere, and there's stuff everywhere. And so we just got out of the way. We moved down the block to Duke Towers, what used to be called Duke Towers, at the corner of Gregson and Trinity, and rented a small place. Turns out that we could find some places here for people who came down to visit us, like Mom and Barry, and like my friend Eddie Hamburg, who was here a week or so ago.
Are you here, Eddie, tonight?
Yeah, I think I saw him before, but we don't have to go look. He's, I
Just want to know who I'm saying.
Rabbi, are you swimming?
I'm swimming just a little bit, thank you. Yeah, I've lost a fair amount of weight, and so swimming is not quite the same. I haven't quite got the rhythm for it, you know, but I am swimming, and I am enjoying it, and in particular, I'm enjoying just the exercise of being in the water. It brings me back to the very, very deep memories, no pun intended.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you.
The deepest muscle memory that I have of being able to swim, and I remember of learning how to swim, or before learning how to swim really, learning how to push myself off the side of the pool, which to me was extraordinary. This was revelatory. This was during the days of George Reeves playing Superman. And for me to push myself off the side of the pool, to get up the courage to pick both my feet up off the ground, put them against the wall behind me, and push myself off horizontally with a deep breath, and then put my face in the water. I could pretend for just a little while until I was overcome by until it felt like my lungs were bursting. But I could overcome until that moment. It felt like I was flying. And I recommend it for people who are looking for some way of progressing through imagination to their fantasies, to actualizing their fantasies and bringing their imagination into real images, to try something like that, something that intrigued you as a child, like Superman did, like flying. And this was really just like flying for me. So it was an extraordinary thing. It was a wonderful thing. And from that grew all kinds of interesting skills. The ability to swim quickly, the ability to swim efficiently and beautifully, and to enjoy it. But never to enjoy it just for its own sake, rather to enjoy it because it was like flying. And it always was like flying to me, and it still is. So to get into the pool these days, I don't swim as fast as I used to, and I don't swim with the same kind of rhythm. But I can still pick my 2 feet up off the ground, put them against the wall behind me, and push off, get that push, and feel like George Reeves flying. So I've been doing that more than other things. But thanks for asking. Thanks for keeping track. And don't forget, if you have an inclination to call and pursue some of these things, here's my phone number, 919-475-1056. Those 41, what was our number? 919-415.
No.
Excuse me.
919-475-1056.
I feel like I'm selling something.
Steve, this is Peter.
Put it in the chat, Steve. Put it in the chat.
I don't like getting distracted by that stuff.
All right.
Every time I see the chat, I go crazy. I can't handle it.
Steve, that story is a story of building resilience. and courage and force in the face of, some uncertainty there, and overcoming that, and conquering it, and it's a very good feeling.
It's a very good feeling, and I think it's a very good story, and it's a part for whole, I think. I hope that everybody has such stories, some place where you go from which you derive a certain kind of strength that is irretrievable, that you really couldn't find anyplace else, and that just makes you feel renewed in the best possible way. Anyway, it is, it's what Midrash does for me. It's what Midrash and the intersection of Midrash and poetry do for me as I start to make the swing and segue back to what we're talking about now. Something that is timely and timeless both at the same moment. Something that that brings present time to mythic time and allows you to be where you are and perhaps where you were, and perhaps in some ways where you would like to be. So, standing at Sinai, and with this we started on the evening of my birthday, June 29th, which was also Erev, the birthday of my father. That determined pretty much the choice of poems, which was about Yehuda Amichai and his father and the receiving of Torah. And the challenge beside the poem, the challenge was, or ancillary to the poem, the challenge was, how did you receive Torah and from whom? And was that a Sinai moment for you? Or what would you say are the Sinai moments that collected for you in the moments of your life when the white lightning took you someplace, or the deep rumble of the thunder took you someplace that you hadn't been before, and you realize, aha, this is both deeply and highly true for myself. So where real time meets mythic time, let's say, and Amichai, as you recall, if you were with me, or if you want to go back and listen to the archived version of that, the archived presentation, you'll see telling the story, a very personal story against a very public backdrop, against the backdrop of the public story that everybody knows. My father gave me the 10 Commandments, not in fury and thunder, which is what the Bible says, but with love and caresses and sweet words and so on. So he sets you up. He knows you know the Bible story, and he's not telling you that one. He just knows that you know that one, so that you have a kind of backdrop for the story that he is telling you, and a real invitation to figure out how real that story is for you, how much it resonates with you, and how much the ideas behind the story resonate with you. So that's the whole idea behind Midrash, I think, is telling the story. The story is too good a story to leave it on the page. To leave the story on the page is in some way to diminish it. It's more than the words on the page. And just so the poetry, especially the poetry that makes use of those sacred stories. The choice of stories was, as I say, dictated by the proximity of my birthday and my father's birthday, and Amichai's relationship with his father, and Torah, and that set us on a track to look at Revelation stories, to look at Mount Sinai stories. And I promised you in the second week that we would look at the story as told by a female poet, by a powerful woman named Hannah Pinchas Cohen, who was not there. That is to say, who claims that she was not at Mount Sinai. In the face of the Bible story and the rabbinic assertion in interpreting the Bible story that everybody was present at Mount Sinai, she says, indeed, I was not, I deliberately stayed behind, and tells a story about being left behind and the values of that and what gets learned from it and the contemplative, deep contemplative nature of it, and in some ways the undermining nature of it. So we heard from Chava Pinchas Cohen, and tonight from Amichai again, but different views from the bottom of the mountain. Two midrashic views and then the poetic one. We'll start at the top of the page that you have before you. A threatening mountain. They stood beneath the mountain. That's the biblical verse from Exodus chapter 19, verse 17. Vayityatzvu bitachtit hahar. What do you hear on the word tachtit? Tachat, tuchas. That's the word. That's the word. They stood under the backside of the mountain.
The tuchus of the mountain.
The tuchus of the mountain was right over them. It's hanging right over them. That's a little intimidating. Vayityatzvu bitachtit hahar. And they're riveted to the place. The word vayityatzvu means they were riveted to it. They couldn't turn away from it. And the Midrash wants to say, it doesn't have to say, which is just great, I think, and important for us to realize. These are folks who know there are, Fourth Amendment rights. These are folks who know they don't have to say it, but they are saying it. They stood beneath the mountain, said Rabbi Avdimi Bar Chama Bar Chasa. This teaches that the Holy One, the Blessed Holy One, vaulted the mountain over them like a barrel and said to them, if you accept the Torah, well and good, and if not, there will be your graves. Said Rabbi Aha Bar Yaakov. Here's a strong indictment against the Torah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yes.
I think it's hard for us to do the chats and for people to raise their hands because I can't see the whole screen and juggle the screen share. So if you can just unmute yourself if you have something to say, but just tell us who you are and just try to be play nicely with each other. I guess that would be how we could do this tonight.
Yeah. So what do you think about this little piece of Talmud?
It's a threat. It's Mary Joan.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that sounds like a threat. It's intimidating.
Indeed. It doesn't sound like anything that you saw in a Cecil B. DeMille movie or in an animated Prince of Egypt movie or anything like that, right?
No.
It really does sound like a threat. Melamed shekafa hakadosh baruch hu aleichem et hahar aleihem et hahar kigigit. Kafa, turned it over, overturned it. God overturned the mountain upon them like a basket or like a barrel and said to them, you will accept this Torah, won't you?
Yeah.
You will.
I read this a few times today, and something spoke to me from one part of my brain and said that there will be your graves. I didn't interpret that to be a cause and effect, that if you don't accept Torah, you're going to die, because we all know we're going to die. We're all going to die. It's embedded in our DNA from the moment we start living. So I interpreted that if you accept the Torah, then a chance of immortality as opposed to the grave.
All right, so the verse is an immediate, or the Midrash is an immediate challenge of what does it mean that this will be your grave? It's something that the voice of the Midrash introduces entirely. It's not that the Torah says it, their lives are at stake. It says it in some other places in this chapter that here's the boundary around the mountain. Let's say it's a radioactive boundary and you can't touch it. You can't go past it, because if you do, there are heavy prices to pay. You will pay with your life if you go past it. It says it's there, but that's decidedly not what the Midrash wants to say. The Midrash wants to say by getting, you should excuse me, underneath this word tuchas. It's getting underneath the word. Tachtit also means very sensibly at the bottom of. It means bottom. It doesn't mean the bottom in the terms of an anatomical feature or the underside of. It simply means the bottom, the nether part of, the base of. And without losing a wink of sleep, our midrashist could have translated it, they stood at the base of the mountain. But that's not what he wanted to do. He wanted to, with his mythic imagination, he wanted to raise the mountain over the heads of the people, move it over, have it threatening them, have them all looking up at this thing, blotting out the sun over them, and hearing God say, if you don't accept this Torah, this is the end of it. With, I think,
Yeah.
a specific point to be made, but it's not necessarily mine to say. Somebody started to say.
Yes. Susan speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is, I mean, traditionally, I mean, the Midrash used to explain why Jews might be less than perfect about keeping the commandments, since they were given, and more to the point, accepted under duress.
All right.
So it's Sheila. I think this is really saying, God has been with the Israelites since Moses started with them in Egypt, and it's now saying, look, I've been there all this time. If you're not going to accept the Torah, then I'm done with you. The covenant is over.
Maybe.
I hear another voice.
Yeah, I think it could mean spiritual death rather than literal death. So that if they don't accept the Torah, something will be permanently missing from them and their lives.
You have been singled out for a particular purpose. You are destined for it. Nevertheless, you must accept it. And I will cajole and persuade, and this is, and even threaten. I hope that I get my way, which is the way that I have imagined things. But if not, let me just tell you that the whole purpose will be lost and the mission, as it were, will be dead. Maybe it doesn't say anything about, maybe it doesn't mean to imply that the people will be, but that the people are going to continue to live at the base of that mountain, open a certain number of hummus and falafel and tourist stands, and start making license plates that say first in Sinai. And how they're gonna
First and last.
that's how they're gonna spend eternity. And any sense of destiny or mission is going to be lost because they have lost it. Well, we don't have in the Talmud the end of the story. Rabbi Aha Bar Yaakov says, here is a strong indictment against Torah. We get that. And that's how this piece of the Talmud wants to leave us. And maybe so we can move on, we can leave it and just look at it as being a view that is an extraordinary view, one kind of view of what it means to stand at the base of the mountain. Remember just a few sentences that I wrote introducing this little section for us for tonight. There are people who have various views from the bottom of the mountain. On the one hand, there's a threatening mountain. On the other hand, there is a loving shelter. Said Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. What is the meaning of, quote, his cheeks are like a bed of spices, Song of Songs. Every single commandment that came forth from the mouth of the Blessed Holy One filled the world with spices. But when the world became filled with the fragrance of the first commandment, where did the fragrance of the second commandment go? The Blessed Holy One took the wind from his treasury and made each fragrant commandment that he had spoken pass by one. As it says, his lips are like lilies, they drip myrrh that passes by. I think I got some little pieces of that translation backwards. If it didn't make exact sense, I hope it made some sense to you. Everything is filled with this extraordinary fragrance. And what looks like a threatening mountain in the first one, in the first story, and what looks like for sure in the Bible story, a tale of people being frightened and overawed, each and every one of them, by standing in front of the mountain that is firing and quaking and so on, that here every utterance of the divine presence is like a Disney movie. Everything is wonderful and everything is myrrh and frankincense, and everything is beautiful. His lips are like lilies. They drip with myrrh that passes by. And passes by refers to one commandment after the next. The first one goes, the second one comes, the third one comes afterwards, and followed by the fourth and the fifth and the sixth and so on. And every single one of them just more intense and dense than the one before in terms of that little gardenia-like, jasmine-like smell that keeps growing and growing and growing. And I bring this to you as a different kind of portrait. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, just like the sages in the first Midrash, share a century and share a whole legacy and a web of teachers and so on. And they have very different purposes. One of them wants to paint with the colors of the literal colors of Exodus 19:17 underneath the mountain, and the other one wants to spray into the air the fragrance that comes with the myrrh and the smell from the lips and the breathing of the Holy One. So, two very different views from the bottom of the mountain. Now, what we were really looking for, perhaps, for the next.
Rabbi, may I ask a question before you go on to Amichai?
Yes.
It's before you go on to Amichai, may I ask a question?
Yes.
What's the I can't see the top of the
The first one or the second one?
well, just is this characteristic of the dialogue between Rabbi Achar Bar Yaakov and Rabbi Avdimi Bar Hama Bar Hassa? You know, particularly the Rabbi Bar Yaakov. Is this, what's the context? Oh, I'm not sure you're hearing me. Are you hearing? Yeah, I didn't know what the context was for his saying,
Wow.
that'll prove you. That
Mhm.
shows that the Torah's, what did he say? A strong indictment against Torah.
Yeah, mikan moda'ah, from the word lahodia, to announce, to proclaim. This is a dense proclamation against the Torah. Yeah, I don't know anything about other machlakot, other conversations or divisions between these sages. So I would really have to do some research to see whether they have any other things to say to each other. But he seems very clear that to teach something like this is not productive. So it seems.
That to see something like that is not productive.
That is to say, to teach something like this, that this is a strong indictment against the Torah, to teach this story about holding the mountain over the head of the people, that doesn't do anything to endear future generations. It really goes back to what Susan Breitzer was suggesting before, that you're doing this because you're afraid for your life. And then what Sally was suggesting is, well, in effect, you would be afraid for your life, or that this is telling it like it is, that this whole mission will be ended and grounded right here.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. It sounds like he's saying, why would you pass that Torah on?
Yes.
Hey,
Yeah.
Rabbi, Mom and I want to say something along those lines too.
Yeah, when I read There Will Be Your Grave, my mind went to something like there's death and then there's death, that they were two different types of death. Everybody knows they're going to die. That's not the issue. The issue is, from the way I read it, that if you accept the Torah as something to explore, it will give you a new type of life, a transcendence, and if you will, a kind of immortality. And that's, so your body may die, but you don't really die.
Yes.
Less of a brimstone, less of a sort of brimstone and fire kind of a God. And more of a, if you come into the fold, you know, will help you walk along the way.
Right, right, right. Does it actually
flowers?
Does it actually help you to have some sense of urgency that could be could be life-ending, could be fatal. If you don't do this, something for sure is not going to survive. You're going to be marred down, mired down, buried there, taken below, and no one will ever see or hear from you again.
Stuck at the base.
You'll cease to be people whom you might have been. It's the intriguing far edge of this is you wonder how much these extraordinary sages who are absolutely aware of the other teachings in their generation and of the other and the large trends in understanding, they're ready to atomize these moments. They're not, on the one hand, to atomize them and say, yes, there would be no Torah and there would be no nothing. On the other hand, they would say, well, of course, this was the destiny of Israel and there had to be Torah. So are they playing fast and loose with it? Are they atomizing something for a particular purpose and then anthologizing something, a larger story for another purpose? Pointing to something that, well, it could have happened this way, and we do well if we considered it very seriously. What is this? Well, no. Yeah, please.
Yeah, the last piece really stood out to me as well, and I've been mulling it over. This, here is a strong indictment against Torah. I would have read it as, here's a strong indictment against God. That it's in fact God that's holding the mountain over their heads. And the indictment I would think of Torah is, well, what is that document what is that somebody would need to hold a mountain over your heads for you to accept it? I've just, in light of that last line, been reading back over it.
Yeah, thank you. Very interesting question to read. Do they mean to say a strong indictment against Torah, or do they really mean to say a strong indictment against God? Or can you really separate out the two? What kind of force is added to it if you say this is a strong indictment against God?
I'd like to, it's David here, offer, I guess, a different reading. There is a saying from two incidents in the life of King Saul, that the one who is kind when he should be cruel will end up being cruel when he should be kind. And I think we could read this as saying that God, in reverse of that, is going to give us the Torah with harshness and intimidation. And God needs to do that for us to accept it, so that in the end, we can be a partner with God with his comfort and love. And so the final line may not be the statement, here is a strong indictment against Torah. It might be a certain kind of a question. Here is a strong indictment against Torah, suggesting the opposite.
Okay. Well, thank you for putting it into the mix. It certainly does fit that in the way that you have entered it into the conversation. All right. Yeah.
This is Gene. May I say something?
Yes.
I seem to remember from the first week that the poem that Amakai, was that the one where he talked about his father was like to him as God?
Yes.
And then he went on to speak lovingly. And this second, loving shelter, seems to fit right in with that because of the perspective of looking at God as loving, with a loving relationship as a father, instead of a very harsh one as in the first.
Mm-hmm.
Which would we prefer our father to be?
Right. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
This is Harlan. Rabbi, is there a difference between the first one that uses texts from Torah and the second one that uses texts from Song of Songs?
I think so. I think the disposition of the midrash, the disposition of the interpreter. What's the palette of colors with which this one wants to paint as opposed to that one? What's the predisposition towards a view of the urgency of Torah? Is this something that is Is this a project that's built on compulsion, on fear, on relentless urgency, something that's built entirely on love? Feels to me like that's the difference between using the Exodus 1917 in a very particular way and in a way that is forced, in a sense. You have to really want to overturn the mountain of regularized meaning of that verse. He stood beneath the mountain means really he stood, the pshat would be he stood at the base of the mountain. But he wants to force this literally to be a shattering, flattening, threatening, dangerous experience. As opposed to, yeah.
I'm sorry. On the other hand, there's constantly also in Torah, if you don't do the following, particularly when we get into the book of Deuteronomy, if you don't do the following, here's what's going to happen. If you do the following, here's what's going to happen. If you don't do the following, so there's a consistency in this kind of modality.
We make it part of the Shema. We say it every time we say the Shema. You know, if you adhere to these mitzvahs and these commandments, then you'll have your grain and your oil, and if not, the wrath of the Lord will be turned against you.
Well, here's a great, big, wide, broad midrashic theme that could occupy us for years. If we wanted to make this, if we decided that this was the theme that we wanted to explore as part of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we would be well served to do so. The back and forth, the push me, pull you of all of these things. Do the rabbis know about those things? Do they believe them? Are there equations, in fact, on which we rely, even though they're not equations in which we believe thoroughly and completely? Are there times when the equations such as piety plus regularity equals success? If you will listen to my voice and so on, then I will plant your corn, your crops according to the rules and so on. Then I will give you the rain in its due season, and the corn will be as high as an elephant's eye, and so on. All of those things. Well, these are good enough farmers with enough experience to understand that those equations and that kind of persistence is important in the world and leads to success. And at the same time, know that it doesn't always work. So, what are you supposed to do with those things? And what about the equation that says that that piety plus learning equals long life? And the story of Moses visiting the classroom of Rabbi Akiva while he's about to receive the Torah, and seeing that Akiva will be then martyred by the Romans, and saying, well, how does this work? What happened to the equation? And God saying to him, shut up. This is how it has arisen in my thought. Maybe a topic for another time. But how it is that the sages understand and read these stories and accept the fragility of a world in which these stories side by side, in some ways an important story for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So,
this is Diane Wright. It seems to me that both of these really speak to the transactional nature of the relationship between God and man, and that God has things to offer, and we can choose to accept them or not, and we have things to bring to God, and he can choose to accept them or not.
Very nice. Yeah. Very nice way of illuminating the manuscript and widening the story here. Well, let's take some time while we still have it and look at yet another view, which is the view of the 20th century poet Yehuda Amichai. When God left the earth, he forgot the Torah at the Jews. And since then, they look for him and cry after him, "You forgot something! You forgot!" in a loud voice. And others think that this is the prayer of the Jews. And ever since, they strain to find hints in the Bible as to the place he might be found. As it says, "Seek the Lord where he is to be found. Call upon him when he is close, but he is far." This biblical verse, "Seek the Lord where he is to be found," part of the Rosh Hashanah liturgy. Dirshu Adonai behi matza'o, ahu bihi yoto karov. Seek him when he is clear, when he is close by. And Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is the time of the year when the orbits are in closest proximity of God and humans in the rabbinic mythological heavens. So, but in the end, what? He is far. What's the impression of the poem? Where does this poem take you? What kind of view of this is standing again at Sinai? What kind of view from the base of the mountain is this? Kusha Elohim azav et haaretz. When God left the earth, he forgot the Torah at the Jews' place. And since then, they look for him and cry after him, "You forgot something, you forgot something," in a loud voice. And others think that this is the prayer of the Jews. What do you think? How does it strike you?
It does take us back to the strange distances that ended the last Amichai poem we read.
Strange distances of the Father.
The strange distances of the Father. So God now disappears into these strange distances. What's going on here? Why is God disappearing? What's God's intent in giving this Torah?
Very different from holding the mountain over your head saying, "You better take this." You know, I can hear my mother saying, "You better do this." And this is like, take it, you know, here, I don't need it anymore. Just take it, go do your thing.
This is Bernie. I have a question. Is the layout of how you have the poem here, how Amichai had it? You know, because like you could read the first line as when God left the earth, he forgot the Torah as one entity. And then the next line would be at the Jews since they look for him as a separate entity and not continuous where he forgot the Torah at the Jews.
No, I think I got it right. How he sculpted the line is an interesting question. It's always an interesting question in free verse. But I think I got that right. Eitzel HaYehudim means She Yehudim. In French, you would say She, at the house of. Or in Yiddish, you would say by. He forgot the Torah by the Jews.
It's a story of seeking, of the Jews seeking after the God and the presence and together with the Torah.
Yes.
Yeah. This is David. But they're seeking God to get rid of something. I mean, they're
right.
They're left with this burden, and take it back, or are you sure you meant to leave it here? Don't you want to at least maybe take it back or help us with it?
Oh my, does anybody want this Torah? Anybody want it? Did God think so little of it that when God left the earth, there is at least one translation that says when God abandoned the earth, although I don't think that there's another Hebrew word for abandon that could have been used. I don't see it as being quite that strong, but when he left the earth, there's a certain indifference. He forgot the Torah. Maybe he just meant to show it to them. But
when did God come to the earth? Did he come to the earth to give the Torah, or did Moses go up to the heavens to get it?
Another machloket. Where exactly? What's the venue here?
It seems like
it
seems like Giselle here. It seems like God is far, where it says Vaitietzvu. They stood still. There is no movement from the people. There is no active presence. It doesn't say vayamdu, it says vayityatzvu, and it seems like God is far from the people when people are still. That is close where the people of Israel do all of these things. In the text, like in the other text, is when they receive the Torah. In here, it's when they seek, when they call, when they scream, when they cry. So,
Yeah. All right. So when there's movement, there's more divine presence when there's movement. But for what sake is there movement in this poem?
Rabbi, this is Harlan. Why is it that God has left the earth?
Yeah. Why has God left the earth? Is this just an occasional or a
bathroom break?
Yeah.
Shamayim Shamayim Ladonai ve'aretz natan livnei adam.
Yeah. I was, if I may, I was thinking of another reference of seek the Lord where to be found, call upon God when God is near. That's in the afternoon Haftarah for Tisha B'Av, which is coming up in a few days, that in the middle of this misery, there is probably the most beautiful Haftarah of the canon, and providing a kind of assurance that even when God really does seem far away, there is a way to find him and to seek him. Although this poem suggests that nonetheless God is still far.
Yeah. Despite the kinds of lovely homiletical turnarounds and prophetic nechemta, like comforting turnarounds that there are, canon, that doesn't seem to be where the poet is. He could have said, just ended with a biblical quotation, Yeshu Adonai behimatza'o. Seek the Lord where he is to be found. Call upon him when he is close. But he's far. He's far. He's far. Why not end it with close, unless you really wanted to say far? And
great poet.
Yes.
I think I related to you when I asked someone who had studied with Amichai in New York, what did she get from that experience? And tell me something about Amichai, I asked her, and she said all the aspiring poets wanted him to fix the lines and tell them to send their poems this way and that way, and then they would be fine for being poets. But what Amichai was more interested in was, what could poetry do? And this is an example, the last line, of what could poetry do, it seems to me, by saying he is far. You're left out in a space that reaffirms the whole first line of it. It's a mamlochet, as you call it, just as great as the one in the first selection.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's like the first poem when it says, don't change, don't change, change.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Kind of built-in tension and inner dynamic there, a dialectic that is, it's both paralyzing and also propelling. And the same thing is true here. Does God really care about giving this thing to the Jews, or did he come and did he have it and it was interesting and he had it and he left it at the Jews and then he left? And what's their immediate response? To glorify in the fact that they have it. There's no golden calf who comes here, and there's no celebration that comes here, but rather they have this thing, and let's assume for just the moment, perhaps for the sake of argument, although I think it's more than that, they're actually terrified. Uh-oh, shachachta mishahu, shachachta, you forgot something, you forgot something.
Rabbi, it's Mary Joan. I don't think so much they're terrified. I feel like they're regarding the Torah as a foundling left on their doorstep. Like they don't want to be responsible for it, but they can't abandon it. So.
Okay, fair enough. They don't want to be responsible for it. They can't abandon it. They would love to return it to God somehow. And how the heck do they do that?
Right.
Inscrutable thing. Here it is. It's a map to somewhere. But to where? How do you read it? How do you understand it? And what do they do?
David here. I think that God's leaving the earth and forgetting the Torah could be a form of tzimtzum. God is withdrawing to give us space and prompting us to essentially take the Torah that God sent down, rearrange it, its words and its letters, and send that back up to God in a nice reciprocal movement. And so we have Torah and prayer as our answer to God's question.
Okay, so there's space here for some kind of interaction, perhaps.
Rabbi, this is Pat.
Hi, Pat.
Hi.
Hi, Pat.
I'm curious about the fourth line. And other people think that that you forgot something is the prayer of the Jews. Now, what's that about? I mean, it's there. It's only a 7-line poem, and it's one of them.
Yeah.
I think that we're speaking in Hebrew and the rest of the world does not understand us. So they think that we're praying instead of pleading for help and trying to get something back from God, like, oh yeah, I'll come and get that or something, but we never get what we're looking for, and we keep looking to find the hints in the Bible.
Is this about language? Is it about a unique language? Is it about intent?
A holy language? Yeah, I think it is a mysterious language.
Is there something about passion? Shachachta mishahu, shachachta, How are we doing this? Are we doing this ritually instead of saying Zachor et Yom HaShabbat shachachta mashu shachachta? You've forgotten something. You've forgotten something. And now we don't know what to do with it anymore. And if only we could figure that out. And there are some people who think that is with its intensity, with its language, with its cultic-like rituals, with all of this stuff, that this is really the prayer of the Jews that somehow then gets elided with or overlapped with V'nei Adam Acherim Choshvim Shezohi Tfilatam Shel HaYehudim, that this is really their prayer, and then it becomes Me'az Hem Torchim Limtzo Ramazim B'Tanach, and now it becomes not only prayer, but it's also Torah study, because if there's a secret map to where God is and where you can go thank God to give it back to God, then maybe you could find it if you do Bible codes, right? Maybe Ibn Ezra, maybe Yehuda Halevi, maybe the Rambam, maybe Rashi, maybe the Ramban, some Seforno, Kliyakar, somebody's going to help you find it. Maybe Hasidic Master. Figure it out as a way of saying, aha, now we know to return it. The rapprochement between God and the Jews. Extraordinary thing about this poem and about these strange dynamics, which are so controversial if we think about them and we want to think about them in that way, is that they are so absolutely right. Which commentators of which movements are going to disagree that the point of all of this Bible study is to find God? Who's going to disagree? In what way is this possibly a disagreement? It's so...
It's that, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Sally, I I read it as a challenge that that we can't find God just by reading the Torah, or we would have found God from all this close study. That it's a challenge to go further and to do something, find God where he is far, not where he is near, because he's not near.
Yes.
That's very cool.
That's
Rabbi,
yes.
what does, in the fourth line that Pat was asking about, others think this is the prayer of the Jews. What does the word "this" refer to? Does that refer to the yelling?
Refer to, it seems to be their passionate outcry of shachachta mashu, that the prayer of the Jews is something that they say. That opens a very interesting doorway for us for prayer. This is a public prayer to a second person God. And they're being very rough. I mean, they're chasing down the driveway, for heaven's sake, waving these scrolls around or whatever it is. You forgot, oh my God, don't forget. Quite literally, don't forget, oh my God, don't forget. You're gonna stick this.
Isn't it a bit cruel in this to set up this metaphor? Like if first we have, if you think of, Martin Buber's I and thou in this, there's you could read the first part of the poem as setting up, an I, thou relationship, even if it involves yelling. But then there's impossibility at the end of the poem when he says, he is far.
That's right. That's right. Final words of the poem can take your breath away, make you rethink what you imagined in the best possible case, in the most civilized, well-honed case, what these words might mean, what these lines might mean. But he's far, after all, which means what? He's far away, and that's all. That's the possibility of it, and that's the impossibility of it, of the whole project. He's far, and you've got a lot of work to do if you want to make it less than far. You're never going to be able to succeed in bringing this back. Yeah. You have been able to succeed in bringing to the fore this dynamic that the Jewish world thinks it needs to do in order to best use the Torah. And the Torah does have hints where you can find God in the Bible. And it also contains the prayer of the Jews, which is which is a passionate outcry to God who has given them something rightly or wrongly.
Yeah, well, Rabbi,
about God giving.
And I was just going to say, I mean, the gift of the Torah is this mountain hanging over our head, an instant death at any moment. So of course we're going to be begging God to take it back. It reminds me of the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy, where the guy receives the Coke bottle and then spends the rest of the film trying to figure out how to give it back because the gods made a big mistake giving us this gift. We thought it was a gift, but we can't handle it. It's too enormous. How can we give it back?
Excellent. And thank you for bringing this back to that first piece of Talmud.
Nice to see you, Jeff.
Yeah, it's nice seeing you guys too.
Thanks for bringing it back to that first piece of Talmud. Whoa, this is really, this is hanging over our heads. We're not going to be able to be quit of it until we can be quit of it. And the only way to be quit of it is for us to figure out how to return it. And the only way for us, ironically, is to learn it. So we end up being Torah scholars, not because we really want to see you in order to have some kind of revelation, but we really want to give this back is what's going on. We want to be quit of the whole project. It is such a story against the backdrop of a story of love. Well, we have to bring this to a close, really. We do?
Debbie? I think Debbie wanted, I keep seeing Debbie raising her hand, like maybe you're not seeing her,
Debbie,
but I'm seeing her.
Why don't you go ahead, just so long as Robert doesn't have anything to say.
Oh, okay. Okay, when I read this, I see
Torah in the first part as being, this is the real deal. And if Torah was a man, it would be really gorgeous. And, or it is really gorgeous as a man. And, because that's what the Song of Songs is talking about. Ooh. And since the Torah is real, we don't or can't understand it. So we tried to give it back, but we end up reading it and studying it anyway. And we do kind of locate God, and he's close to us, but then he's far away. So well, I'm getting surface stuff, I guess, but I like my version.
Yeah, your version is a very beautiful one. And yours is a version about a relationship. Let's just say, for example, a 50-year relationship. Let's just say it's some kind of a marriage that lasts for 50 years, where there is a push me, pull you, and there's a why are you doing this, and why are you testing me in this way, and why is this happening? And the best parts of the relationship can be defined by the ways in which we poke at each other or push each other towards one thing and the next. And then there are other parts of the relationship that are just like, well, his lips are like lilies. They drip myrrh that passes by. And sometimes it is some.
They used to be. They used to be. I looked at their old wedding album and they used to be.
Well, maybe if you look at them again, you'll see that in some ways, in the best possible ways, they still are. The threatening mountain, the loving shelter, what happens when we can't figure out whether this is supposed to be for us or not to be supposed to be for us, the different views at the base of the mountain. It's interesting that we have these various teachers who offer us these different views from the base of the mountain, and they're all very clear, like Amichai's view of in the first poem, like Chava Pinchas Cohen in the last poem, like these three. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different views from the base of the mountain. But if we put them all together, they offer us an extraordinary map, really, of how it is that we relate as individuals with aspirations and with fantasies, as couples, as partners, as antagonists, as protagonists, as fellow travelers, as families, as people who have made it the point to study together, to get better together at discerning the places where God is. Never mind whether we're going to give this Torah back or not. We can defer that for a little bit, because in the interim, if God seems to be far away, but our study of that which is divine, or the scripture that's been given or forgotten by us, is quite accessible. It's quite human. So let's take this part for whole of the various aspects of a 50-year marriage. Exactly when is your anniversary, Rosensteins?
Yeah, this past Saturday. They're not talking. A few days ago.
Yes, Saturday last.
50 years and 2 days. Is that right?
Mazel tov.
50 years and 2 days, yes.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
Mazel
Thank you.
Listen to you sing, but we can't all sing together. We can't sing
No,
together.
don't sing. Don't sing.
No, no, don't sing. Don't sing. But we appreciate the Torah models of all of these views from the base of Sinai, and how it is that they've come together, and how it is that you two, as longtime members of the community, have helped us all move a little closer to the mountain, pushing. God might be far away, but there's Robert and Deborah. They're persevering, so we'll persevere. We're going to persevere with them, and we're going to enjoy the journey with them, and we'll say with them, Misha Berach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Imotenu Saraf Korach Avaleya Hu Yivarech et Chatan Nachum ben Avraham v'et Kala Dvorah bat Avraham. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob bless Nachum ben Avraham and Dvorah bat Avraham ba'avur shehem הם חוגגים את חגיגת יובל לחתונתם. They are celebrating the 50th anniversary of their wedding. יזכר זה הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמרהם ויצילהם מכל צרה ומצוקה ומכל נגע ומחלה. And for this reason, may God protect them from all ills and ails. And may God preserve them and protect them, together with the community with which they struggle, with which they love, within which they work, where they study, that they move forward from, to whom they offer their own perspectives from the base of the mountains. And may that be the case for years and years to come. And we say,
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, and thank you for sharing this beautiful blessing for us.
oh, you're welcome. You're welcomed by all of us. And we're all honored to be part of such a celebration. The anniversary on Zoom, I don't know how many of them there have been thus far, but probably not too many. But we look forward to more and more such milestones. Thanks, everybody. Let's do this again. I'll send you out another note and we will explore yet another aspect of what it means to stand at the base of the mountain.
2 weeks.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Debbie.
Yep, thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you,
Mazel
everybody.
tov, Debbie and Robert.
Yes.
Thank you. Mazel tov, you guys.
Thank you.
Mazel tov.
Thank you.